Michael Chase, my ex-husband, a man with millions in assets, but stingy enough to wince at buying a $30 t-shirt. Yet, when it came to our divorce, he walked away with nothing, willingly. A forced relationship brings no joy, so I begrudgingly signed the divorce papers and instantly became a millionaire. But before I could even warm up to the idea of my newfound wealth, I got scammed. My entire savings vanished in a heartbeat. Sitting in the police station, bawling my eyes out, I unexpectedly received a call from Michael. "I've been working hard lately. I've got $500,000 saved up now," he said casually. "How about we get married again? I'll hustle harder, and maybe I can save another $500,000. That way, when we get divorced for the second time, you'll be a millionaire all over again." "You're insane." My emotions were already teetering on the brink, and Michael's absurd suggestion was the last straw. Since the divorce, we hadn't had any contact. His sudden, nonsensical call caught me completely off guard. Before I could process what he said, a police officer called my name, signaling it was my turn to give a statement. By the time everything was wrapped up, it was already dark outside. "We'll do our best to investigate. If there are any updates, we'll let you know," the officer said formally, though I knew the chances of recovering my money were slim. I drifted out of the police station like a lost soul, finally squatting by the entrance and sobbing uncontrollably. That was my entire fortune. It was the compensation I spent a year and a half fighting for in court, draining Michael's bank account in the process. "Why are you crying?" "It's just money." "It's not like you lost your life," came an all too familiar voice. Through tear-blurred eyes, I looked up to see Michael standing awkwardly before me. T-shirt, shorts, flip-flops, his signature look. "Are you hungry?" he asked, holding up a bag of fried chicken. "I even got you an extra order of fries." I stared at him pitifully, my tears flowing even harder. Michael's expression grew increasingly grim as he watched. Finally, unable to bear it, he turned to leave. I grabbed the hem of his shirt, burying my face into it, using it to wipe away my tears, and, admittedly, my runny nose. He glanced at me, then at his now soiled shirt, and sighed in resignation. Pointing toward a nearby bicycle, he asked, "Home?" The bicycle was a gift from me, a $800 purchase back when I was still chasing romance. I insisted he pick me up after work, but Michael, ever the penny pincher, refused to buy a car, hated paying for cabs, and complained about bus transfers. So, I bought him a bike. Of course, I got my return on investment when I made him buy me a $50,000 Hermes bag later. High risk, high reward. During the divorce, Michael took the bike, claiming it was his premarital property. Sniffling, I climbed onto the back seat, stuffing fries into my mouth as I tilted my head back, waiting for him to strap on my helmet. "Ready to go?" Michael asked, mounting the bike. He turned to look at me, a hint of exasperation in his voice. I had cried enough and eaten my fill, before remembering to ask the critical question. "How did you know I got scammed?" I demanded. It had been less than 6 hours since it happened, and Michael and I hadn't been in contact for ages. "How on earth did he find out?" "You called Lily," he replied nonchalantly, "and I just happened to be online gaming with her at the time." Lily, my best friend, was notorious for her abysmal gaming skills. Back when Michael and I got married, she had enthusiastically supported our union solely because Michael was a gaming pro who could carry her through matches. Grumbling silently at Lily's lack of loyalty, I retorted defensively, "That doesn't mean I asked you to come pick me up." Michael sighed deeply. "I was worried that if I didn't come, you'd flood the entire police station with your tears." The summer night breeze lifted the hem of his oversized t-shirt, adding to the stifling heat. Wearing a helmet, I was hot, uncomfortable, and, worst of all, on the verge of tears again. I spent the next 3 days wandering aimlessly around Michael's tiny rental apartment. When I was thirsty, he handed me water. When I was hungry, he cooked for me. By the third day, I finally felt like myself again. Michael, after carefully assessing my mental state and concluding I was no longer a danger to myself, politely escorted me out. You've stayed at my place for 3 days, and I won't charge you rent. But since we're divorced, it's not appropriate for us to keep living under the same roof. It could stir gossip. A cab ride from my place to yours is about $28. Here's $30. Go home. Bye. He shut the door right in my face. I barely managed to pull back in time to save my nose from being smashed. Glaring at the old, battered door, I roared, Michael. Go to hell. I swear, I used to be a polite, classy woman who never cursed. But after meeting Michael, my manners had been pushed to their absolute limit. Do you think I'm a beggar? I slammed the crumpled $30 bill against the door with all my might and stormed off. I hadn't even made it far when I heard the door creak open behind me. Turning around, seething, I caught Michael quickly snatching the $30 off the ground before slamming the door shut again. If I had a grenade in my hand, I would have thrown it without hesitation. Once he was gone for good, maybe I'd finally get some peace of mind. It didn't take long after I got home for the phone calls to start pouring in. Family and friends, all suddenly so concerned about me. To this day, I still don't understand how the narrative spun itself. It was Michael who had insisted on divorcing me, yet somehow, in everyone else's eyes, I was the unreasonable one. Even with this whole scam situation, losing such a huge amount of money would have pushed anyone else to the brink of despair. Some might have even contemplated jumping off a building. But since everyone knew Michael had been looking after me for the past few days, they didn't even bother checking in. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. It was even more infuriating than losing all that money. Lily eventually barged into my place, giving me a thorough once-over before nodding in approval. Yep, Michael really does the trick. I rolled my eyes. What does he have to do with anything? Every time you're about to lose it or go off the rails, he's the only one who can calm you down. Lily said smugly. Which is why it was a brilliant idea to send him to the police station to pick you up. You've got some nerve. I snapped. We haven't talked in forever. Do you know how messy the divorce was? And you sent him to laugh at me? Lily gave me an incredulous look. Laugh at you? You two might be divorced, but it's not like you hate each other. I scowled and said nothing, stewing in silence. And isn't this a perfect opportunity? You're down on your luck, and he's taking care of you. Who knows? Maybe you two could get back together, Lily suggested, her tone brimming with optimism. I looked up at her, deadpan. Do you seriously think Michael and I would ever remarry? Why not? It's not like anything unforgivable happened between you two. Lily shrugged. To be honest, none of us ever understood why you two got divorced in the first place. I raised an eyebrow. So, in your eyes, I'm just a drama queen? Lily grinned sheepishly. Well, you two were only married for 2 years, and you spent 1.5 years of that in a divorce battle. You tell me if that's dramatic. I sighed, a bitter ache surfacing in my chest. Lily, the person who wanted the divorce, it was never me. This revelation seemed to catch Lily completely off guard. She nearly jumped out of her seat. What? I thought the fight dragged on because you couldn't agree on alimony. I rolled my eyes. I don't need money. Why would I fight for alimony? I married Michael because I liked him. But I had no choice, he didn't like me back. Even I think the story of Michael and me is a tangled mess. The first time we met was at a mutual friend's birthday party. Honestly, it was love at first sight, or, more accurately, attraction at first sight. He had one of those faces where every feature, eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, checked every box on my list of aesthetics. So, with the help of our friend, I got his contact information and made the first move. To be fair, I wasn't exactly lacking in confidence. I had decent looks and was used to being pursued rather than the other way around. I heard Michael was a game developer and streamer. The kind of guy who didn't have much interaction with girls. In my head, it was a no-brainer, I'd win him over easily. Turns out, I was a little too naive. Michael was frustratingly unresponsive. I'd text him, and it would take him ages to reply. I'd call, and he often wouldn't even pick up. I started to wonder if he hated me. But when I brought it up to our mutual friend, they clarified. It's not that Michael dislikes you. He just rarely checks his phone. Most of the time, he's either glued to his computer playing games or writing code. And honestly, he probably doesn't hate you, but I don't think he's planning to date anyone either. I was stunned. Why? Isn't he at the age where guys are supposed to be, restless and eager? He's frugal, my friend replied. Their expression hard to describe. He thinks relationships are expensive. Back then, I didn't fully understand what my friend's expression meant. I just waved it off confidently. No problem. I've got money. As an only child, I wasn't born into extreme wealth, but my parents had always pampered me. Even after I started working, they'd occasionally send me checks, worried I might be running low. On top of that, I supplemented my income by running a blog, so financially speaking, I could definitely afford to spoil someone like Michael. Sure, stinginess in a guy was a bit of a turnoff, but hey, I'm a sucker for a pretty face. For Michael, I was more than willing to pay the price. Once I confirmed he didn't dislike me, I took the next step and showed up at his place. A woman pursuing love needs a heart as vast as the ocean. If he wasn't into going out or socializing, that was fine. I'd stay in with him. Michael's frugality didn't bother me much. After all, I was perfectly fine covering the bills for food, drinks, and entertainment. But what really caught me off guard was that, despite being tight with money, Michael turned out to be exceptionally good at household chores. He had a touch of OCD, and his home was spotless. His cooking skills were top-notch. The dishes he made weren't just delicious, they looked like something out of a gourmet magazine. On top of that, he was great at fixing appliances, unclogging drains, and even knitting sweaters. And the cherry on top? His job required him to sit in front of a computer all day, barely moving. Yet somehow, he had abs. His physique was lean and sculpted. I'll admit it, I was utterly smitten. 3 months into knowing him, I used every trick in the book, coaxing, persuading, and a bit of shameless persistence, and finally won him over. Michael became my boyfriend. Those early days felt like a dream. I was so happy that I'd wake up smiling, thinking I must still be dreaming. Unfortunately, good things don't last forever. The sweeter our beginning, the uglier our arguments would later become. Our first fight happened a week after we officially became a couple. I was head over heels for Michael back then, completely consumed by that euphoric haze of infatuation. I wanted the whole world to know I had landed the perfect boyfriend. So, in my excitement, I messaged all my close friends and invited them to dinner at a Chinese restaurant to celebrate. Michael wasn't thrilled. There were 2 reasons for his displeasure. First, he didn't like crowds. Too noisy, too chaotic, it put him in a bad mood. Second, he thought I was being a bit showy. To him, dating was something private between 2 people, so why go out of the way to host a dinner? Michael wasn't the type to argue. When he was upset, he'd just sulk quietly. But I'm not the kind of person who lets things slide. If something's wrong, I need it spelled out. The more he avoided me, the angrier I got. Our silent treatment turned into me launching a one-sided tirade. Finally, I snapped, yelling, "If you don't want to eat with my friends, fine. I'm not one to force anyone to do something they don't want to." With that, I grabbed my bag and stormed out. I felt so wronged. I was spending my own money to treat everyone, all because I wanted to show off my amazing boyfriend. Was that really so bad? I wasn't even touching his wallet, so why was he acting so stingy? To make matters worse, it was Friday, the dreaded rush hour traffic after work. I was dressed to the nines, wearing a beautiful dress and perfectly applied makeup. But I couldn't hail a single cab. The streets were packed, and it was clear I'd have to squeeze onto the subway instead. Stubborn as I was, it never even crossed my mind to call a friend with a car to pick me up. I just stood by the curb, clutching my bag, watching one fully booked taxi after another pass me by. The frustration and hurt I felt were almost unbearable. And then Michael appeared, casually riding up on his bike. I pressed my lips together and refused to look at him. He sighed, got off the bike, and reached for my carefully styled hair. Gently, he tied it up and handed me a helmet. "What are you doing?" "You're ruining my hair." "Safety first. A good hairstyle isn't worth risking your life." Just like that. All my anger, swelling like a balloon, was punctured and deflated in an instant. Michael didn't need to say sweet words or crack jokes to make me smile. He just put the helmet on me, had me sit on the back of his bike, and pedaled us to the restaurant. And me? I wasn't stupid. I took the excuse he gave me and let it go. Michael and I fought countless times, and we made up just as many. I'm lively and outgoing, while he's quiet and introverted. I love socializing, he loves staying home. I'm generous, and he's frugal. Our personalities couldn't be more different. So, after the honeymoon phase wore off, it was only natural that conflicts began to surface. I wasn't exactly the most mature person in love. I had a habit of saying, "Let's break up," more times than I can count. Maybe I took it for granted that Michael always gave in whenever I uttered those words, so I kept pushing the limits, thinking he'd never truly leave. To be honest, I can't even remember what caused the last fight we had before we got married. Just another trivial argument about something insignificant, I'm sure. But in the heat of that argument, with voices raised and emotions running high, Michael suddenly asked, "Do you want to get married?" That question stopped me cold. My friends were right. Whenever Michael wanted to, he could snuff out my anger in an instant. Marriage had never been on my radar before. I was someone who liked freedom and having fun. But the moment he brought it up, I couldn't help but start imagining it. Suddenly, I was brimming with excitement. Picking out the dress, decorating the venue, choosing invitations, I wanted everything to be perfect. Was it vanity? Maybe. But what I enjoyed most was watching Michael's pained expression every time he pulled out his credit card to pay. I'd tease him with a grin, "Too expensive for you? Should I go for a cheaper wedding dress?" He'd grit his teeth and say, "Forget it. As long as you like it. But since the dress is already so pricey, could you at least pick a cheaper pair of wedding shoes?" I'd nod obediently, then pick out the most expensive shoes in the store. Michael would mutter under his breath, wallet in hand, while still reluctantly paying up. "Whatever, as long as it makes you happy. Anyway, after we're married, my money's our money, so buy whatever you want." Before meeting Michael, I had always been financially independent. I even once entertained the idea of being his sugar mommy. But there was something deeply satisfying about seeing him begrudgingly spend on me. He loved money. But he was willing to spend that money on me. Didn't that mean, in his heart, I was worth more than his precious savings? I suppose I never truly understood Michael. When we weren't arguing, he treated me well. And we shared many sweet memories. But he never opened up to me about what was in his heart. So, when we finally ended up divorcing, I was surprised, but not entirely. After the divorce, Michael moved out of our home and rented a smaller place. We didn't keep in touch after that. Yet whenever something happened to me, he'd show up, taking care of me and calming me down. It's hard to say whether my feelings for him are love, resentment, or hatred. Human emotions are too complex, and with my beauty and single-track mind, I'm definitely not cut out for pondering such high-level questions. After a few days of feeling down, I forced myself to bounce back. After all, that money was all Michael's to begin with. I'll just pretend I was the one who walked away empty-handed after the divorce. During this time, I tried texting him twice and calling him once. As expected, there was no response. Typical, what a dog of a man. On Sunday, as usual, I sneaked into Michael's gaming livestream with my alternate account. Every Sunday, he goes live to play games, and his streams are quite popular. I watched him play, but something about it didn't feel right. A woman's intuition is rarely wrong. The person playing alongside Michael was someone I'd never seen before. Judging by the in-game avatar and username, it was probably a girl. Women are natural investigators. I noted her avatar and username, then searched online. It didn't take long for me to figure it out. She's another gaming streamer, known for her bold personality and killer figure. I entered her livestream, where she was also streaming her game with Michael. Their conversation wasn't explicitly flirtatious, but definitely bordered on intimate, closer than just friends. So, I went through their past streams. During the days when I was feeling low, not only had Michael been playing games with her nonstop, but they'd even met up in person. She had even posted photos on her social media. And now, the internet is filled with fans shipping them as a couple. The moment I saw this, my chest tightened with sharp pain. I immediately turned off my phone and threw it far away. I've always put on a tough front, telling everyone I've long stopped caring about Michael. But let's be honest, you can't lie to yourself. If I truly didn't care about him, the day Michael showed up at my door with fried chicken, I'd have kicked him to the curb. For so long after the divorce, I stayed calm only because I knew Michael hadn't had anyone else close to him. Oh, wait. That's no longer true. Now, there's someone else. I spent an entire week consumed with anxiety, wanting to confront him but too embarrassed to say anything. Eventually, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I decided to call Michael. I told myself this would be the last time. If he didn't pick up, so be it. I've already made enough attempts, I had to preserve some dignity. The phone rang and rang. Just before I was about to hang up, he answered. Michael's voice was as warm as ever. Sarah? What's up? I wasn't expecting him to answer. Holding the phone tightly, I wanted to speak, but my throat felt too constricted to make a sound. Hello? Why aren't you saying anything? Michael, you've been so busy lately. You finally decided to grace me with an answer, I said, forcing my voice to steady. He ignored my sarcasm, paused for 2 seconds, and then said, I signed a new ad deal a couple of days ago. I blinked in confusion. And? The payment was about $460,000. It just hit my account. Am I supposed to congratulate you? What I mean is, I now have $5.46 million in savings, Michael said, sounding dead serious. My heart started racing as I recalled what he'd said during our last phone call. So, have you thought about us getting remarried? He asked casually, as if discussing the weather. I struggled to follow his logic. What does our remarriage have to do with your savings? You just lost $10 million, didn't you? If we get remarried, my savings will be yours too. Once I save up $10 million, we can divorce again. That way, it's like you never lost the $10 million, it's still sitting pretty in your account, he explained earnestly. So cheer up already. I let out a disbelieving laugh. If you're feeling so generous, why not just give me the $10 million now? That won't work. If we're married, giving you money is perfectly legal. But right now, we don't have any legal relationship. I can't just hand it over to you. What, you can't give money to your ex-wife? That's not it, Michael said, his tone serious. Legally speaking, if you were rushed into surgery right now, I wouldn't even have the right to sign off for you. The old me would have already started a fight with him over this. He's always been like this. And I can never figure out how his brain works. So, in your mind, I'm just some gold digger who'd marry and remarry for money, huh? That's not what I meant, Sarah. Stop twisting my words, he said, and I could picture his brows furrowing, his disapproving expression crystal clear even without seeing him. "Michael, let me make this clear one more time. When I married you, it was because of you, not your money. I admit, I might have been a bit over the line when it came to our divorce. But how was I supposed to know you'd rather walk away penniless than stay with me? We were married for 2 years and spent a year and a half of that fighting over the divorce. If you'd said even once that you didn't want to end things, we could have kept going. If you really hated me so much, then why did you marry me in the first place? It's not like I begged you to." I could hear the quiver in my own voice and quickly hung up before he could notice. There's no way Michael can see me cry. Crying after all this time would make it seem like I'm still hung up on him. Fine, I admit it. I am still hung up on him. Michael is a man who, according to all his friends, is described as stingy but reliable. My take on him? Gentle but distant. He's like a block of ice that I could never warm. No matter how much I yelled, screamed, or lost my temper, he would look at me with the same calm, indifferent expression. At the same time, he's like a cloud I could never quite reach, always unpredictable, always leaving me guessing what he'd do next. When he proposed to me, I didn't see it coming. When he divorced me, I didn't see that coming either. After we got married, the fights never really stopped. I knew, deep down, that both of us were exhausted in this relationship. We'd both made countless compromises for each other, and those compromises weighed on us. But people are funny creatures. Even after compromising, we can't help but feel a little resentful, secretly hoping the other person will notice and feel sorry for us in return. Especially during arguments, when the other person zeroes in on your weak spot. Those buried feelings of injustice come rushing to the surface. That's when everything blows up. We start dragging out old grievances, shouting ourselves hoarse, trying to prove how much we've given to this relationship. And then, we start blaming the other person for all the ways they've fallen short. By the end, we're both worn out. Michael sighed and said, "Sarah, let's get a divorce." "Fine. Let's divorce. If we don't, I'm a dog." I shot back. So, off we went, excitedly clutching our IDs to the courthouse, only to be told we had to wait in line, deal with asset division, and go through other procedures. I knew the process. I was certain we wouldn't actually go through with it. After all, we'd had so many fights before. They'd blow over eventually, and after a few days, I'd still feel like I loved him. But this time, Michael didn't back down. He pulled me along to register for the divorce, and when we got home, he actually started sorting out our finances. We'd only been married 6 months, there wasn't much marital property to divide. I knew exactly how much he earned, and seeing him sitting there with a grim face, tallying numbers, I decided to tease him. "If we're getting divorced, you should at least pay me $1 million in alimony." I thought to myself, Michael is so stingy. This is a man who feels guilty about buying a $30 t-shirt. After we got together, I ended up buying all his clothes, shirts, pants, shoes. For him to part with $1 million? He'd probably rather die. But to my shock, without even looking up, he nodded and said matter-of-factly, "All right. $1 million it is." That's when I started to panic. When did I realize that Michael was dead set on divorcing me? It was probably when I raised the alimony from $1 million to $5 million, and he agreed without a second thought. Things had escalated to the point where, during the hearing, I told my lawyer, unless Michael is willing to leave everything behind, I will never agree to this divorce. The lawyer looked at me, conflicted. This is a bit tricky. According to current marriage laws, even if Michael were guilty of a major wrongdoing during the marriage, it would only slightly influence the division of property in your favor. Besides, right now, it's just a case of emotional breakdown. There's no cheating, no mistress, no domestic violence. I wanted to tell the lawyer that Michael and I hadn't had an emotional breakdown. I really wanted to say that if Michael had cheated or been abusive, I would have already filed for divorce without hesitation. But he hadn't. There wasn't a woman anywhere in his life. Even now, when we were at odds and couldn't stand each other, he was still cooking meals for me every day at the same time, cooking the dishes I liked. Why should I get a divorce? How could I possibly agree to it? But reality doesn't bend to our desires. Michael gave up everything, including the wealth he had painstakingly built up before marriage. He transferred the savings to me, the house to me, even the high-end gaming computer he loved went to me. All he took was the bicycle I'd bought him. I had nowhere else to turn, no other choice. After the divorce, he was so broke he had to borrow money from friends just to rent a place. I knew that his friends didn't look kindly on how I handled the situation. After all, when you break it down, Michael and I just didn't get along. There was no real principal issue, no serious reason for the divorce. I probably went too far. But honestly, I just didn't want to get divorced. He was so obsessed with money. Aside from money, I didn't know how else to keep him. In the end, though, I didn't just fail to keep him, I ended up taking all his money. While I resented Michael's coldness and indifference, maybe he thought he was unlucky to have met me. After blocking all of Michael's contact information, I did it like it was second nature. I was used to this by now. Then, without a second thought, I called up a friend and we went to a bar. I was young, beautiful, and had a great personality. Plenty of men were interested in me. I wasn't about to waste my time fixating on that cold ex-husband of mine. But of course, there's always someone who just doesn't get it. Lily, holding up her phone, rushed over to me. "Oh my God, girl. Someone's trying to steal your man. This woman has been live streaming with Michael and playing games together for days. That's never happened before." I took one look at the phone and saw that it was that same woman again. "I'll remind you one more time, Michael and I are divorced." "Stop tying me to him," I said, irritated. "Sis, have you seriously lost your mind? Do you not see how serious this is?" Lily asked, her concern obvious. "I don't know whether Michael and this woman are involved, but even if they are, I have no right to question him." I slammed my bottle down heavily and looked at Lily. "He's my ex-husband, not my possession. He has the right to start a new life, a new relationship. If he really likes her, that's fine. At least they can play games together." "I never understood what you two were doing anyway," Lily said, still stunned. She looked at me blankly, then reached out to touch my forehead. "What are you doing?" I swatted her hand away. "I think you're delirious and don't know what you're saying," Lily said. "Come on, we're way too familiar with each other for you to pretend. You don't need to act tough in front of me. All of our friends knew that if I were a landmine, Michael was the fuse. The moment he did something new, I would explode. It's fine. I know you're too embarrassed to ask him yourself. I'll text Michael later and set up a game with him. I'll try to get him to spill something," Lily suggested, already reaching for her phone. "Don't," I said, pressing her hand down before she could make a move. I met her surprised gaze and repeated, "Don't. You can still play games with Michael. But stop trying to get information for me. Don't tell me anything about him anymore." Lily loved playing games and often turned to Michael to join her. But I knew she'd been reaching out to him lately to get the scoop on his life. "What's going on with you? Has this whole thing really messed with your head?" Lily asked cautiously. "Honestly, I still think Michael has feelings for you." "I haven't been messed up by anything," I said firmly. "I just don't want to keep wasting energy on this." After all this time entangled with Michael, I barely recognized myself anymore. Before I met Michael, I never imagined that just being in a relationship could change me so completely. From that day on, I made a conscious effort to avoid any news related to Michael. It wasn't long before I received an unexpected call from the police station. The bad news was that I'd been scammed by an organization, and their leader had fled. The good news was that they'd managed to recover the money. Oh my God. Since the moment I discovered I'd been scammed, I never once hoped that the money would be returned. Everyone around me said I should treat it as a lesson learned and move on. If it was gone, so be it. As long as I was okay. That's all that mattered. I made sure to send flowers and gifts to everyone at the police station to thank them. The young police officer who had been handling my case was beaming with a huge smile. Clearly, she was still young and couldn't resist my praise and gifts. While finishing up the paperwork, she casually asked, "Where's your boyfriend?" "I haven't seen him today." I was puzzled. "Boyfriend?" "The one who picked you up last time. We saw you crying so badly and were about to take you home in a squad car, but then your boyfriend showed up," she said with a smile. "Let me tell you something, but don't tell him I told you." I promised I'd keep it a secret. I blinked, still confused. "What?" "After you got scammed, your boyfriend came to us and offered us 10 million to pass it on to you. Saying it was to cover the money you lost. Though it was a kind lie, we couldn't do that. Besides, the case already had leads, and the chances of recovering the stolen money were high. Your boyfriend really cares about you." I smiled weakly. "He's not my boyfriend." "Wait, what? Are you married? I thought your records said you were single?" I sighed. I lied. I'm actually divorced. He's my ex-husband. The officer's expression was priceless. She looked flustered, wanting to comfort me but unsure how to proceed. Being the considerate person I was, I didn't let her feel too awkward for too long and made an excuse to leave. Only when I walked out of the police station did I finally let out a long breath. I knew that Michael was great at making money. But with divorced parents and no family support, every penny he earned was hard-earned. How long had it been since I was scammed? For him to save up 10 million, honestly, it wasn't easy. Scammer. Big scammer. Wasn't it illegal for him to give me money unless we were getting back together? You wanted to involve the police in this scam too? Michael, how many times have you tricked me when I wasn't looking? As it turns out, you really can't trust a woman's words. I had sworn I'd never have anything to do with Michael again, but the next thing I knew, I was standing in front of his door. I stared at the old, dilapidated door, nearly crossing my eyes. Should I knock? Or not? Maybe I should just forget it. Even if I asked him what was going on, most of the time, I wouldn't understand his answer. Michael and I mostly just spoke past each other. Despite that, I'd been entangled with him for years, which I truly admired. If I knocked today and asked, and he answered, then what? I'd probably shamelessly enjoy the sweetness for a while, and then we'd repeat the same old cycle: fight, break up, reconcile. Eventually, we'd be emotionally drained and never speak again. This road had only one possible ending, and given our personalities, it didn't seem like there could be any other outcome. Forget it. I won't ask. With my head down, I turned to leave, only to find Michael standing silently behind me. He was still in his t-shirt, slippers, and baggy shorts, holding a plastic bag, looking at me, though I hadn't realized how long he'd been standing there. I jumped in shock and screamed. Michael stepped forward and covered my mouth, helplessly saying, "My house has poor soundproofing. Don't wake the neighbors. Don't try to play innocent." "If you hadn't snuck up behind me, I wouldn't have been scared," I said, prying his hand away and turning to walk away. He didn't stop me, as always. I took a couple of steps, but something felt off, so I turned back. Michael was still standing there, probably surprised by my sudden movement. He paused, then lowered his head and pulled out his keys to open the door. I walked over a few steps and yanked the plastic bag from his hand. "Sarah." He frowned and tried to grab it back. "Don't move." I ignored him, my face serious as I started taking the medication out of the bag, box by box. "What's all this? Are you sick? What kind of illness? When did you get sick?" The names of the pills were so unfamiliar, they might as well have been written in a foreign language. I flipped to the back of one of the boxes. And the first things that caught my eye were antidepressant and anti-anxiety. You don't need to know, Michael said, forcefully grabbing the bag from my hands and turning to open the door. His eyes didn't meet mine at all. I used to write code and pull all-nighters, so my sleep quality was bad. The doctor prescribed some sleep aids. You're lying to me. You're lying again. I wasn't a fool. I didn't just believe whatever he told me. I reached into his pocket and grabbed his phone. The password was still my birthday, and he hadn't changed it. I opened his email, and sure enough, there were records of his appointments with a therapist. It's kind of funny, but when Michael wanted to divorce me, I really turned his phone upside down. I couldn't believe that a man would want to get divorced without cheating. Without losing interest, and when I could clearly feel that he still had feelings for me. There had to be a reason. But I never found it. Until today. I found out he had an avoidant attachment style, moderate anxiety, and moderate depression. I looked up from the phone and met his gaze. Michael looked away uncomfortably. It's not a big deal, and it doesn't affect my life. He reached out and took the phone back, and this time, I didn't stop him. He opened the door, hesitated for 2 seconds, then turned back, pulled out his wallet from his pocket. His fingers lingered on a $50 bill for a moment, then finally moved to a $100 one. He took it out and pressed it into my hand. Take a cab home. The security in this area isn't good. So don't come here again. Could this fool really think that the reason I left that $30 on the ground last time was because I thought it was too little? Besides, after discovering such a big secret today, how could I leave? I wasn't going anywhere. In fact, I was going to stay at his place. And I stayed for a whole week, eating his food, wearing his clothes, using his stuff. Michael tried for a whole week to get me to leave. But he didn't manage. He locked himself in the bedroom for 2 hours, sulking. Then, when he came out, he said he was going to the supermarket. I was curled up on the sofa, playing a game on his iPad, looking him up and down. Really? You're sure you're going to buy groceries, not running away from home? Michael had run away from home before. Every time we fought, and he couldn't make up with me, he'd start running away. He didn't go far. Though. He couldn't bear to book a hotel, so he'd stay with friends. But all of his friends had partners, so he couldn't stay long. He'd quietly return, his tail between his legs. And when he came back, he'd always bring a bag of groceries. He'd call it, I went to the supermarket. When I exposed him, Michael didn't get mad. He just stood at the door, holding his phone, changing his shoes. I closed the game, stood up, stretched lazily, and walked toward him. He had his back to me, preparing to open the door. I jumped on his back, without warning. Michael wasn't prepared, and staggered a few steps. Instinctively, he quickly grabbed my legs to steady himself. We hadn't had this kind of intimate contact in a long, long time. At first, when we fought, I tried to smooth things over by making up in bed. But over time, his resistance to me became more and more obvious. I had been the one constantly pushing for reconciliation, and eventually, I got tired of it. I loved him, but no matter how much I loved him, after a while, being the one always giving was exhausting. Get off me. I saw Michael's ears turning red. I won't, I pouted, playing the stubborn brat. Sarah, listen to me. Michael sighed helplessly. When did I ever listen to you? After we dated for 6 months and were married for 2 years? When Michael realized I was really planning to stay there and not leave, he stopped insisting. We just stood there, in this strange and awkward way, with him still carrying me on his back, starting to chat. Sarah, I know you're worried about me, but I really am fine. Everyone is under pressure these days. Who doesn't have some mental issues? If you took a test, you might even have depression. So just go back. We don't have any label, and living together isn't a good idea. It'll mess things up if either of us wants to date again later. I asked him, "So, what you're saying is that you have someone else now?" "No," he replied, "but you will date again in the future." "Michael, do you still mean what you said about remarrying me? Didn't you get your money back?" "There's no need for us to get remarried now. Does it only count if money is involved for you to remarry? I love you. Isn't that enough of a reason?" Michael fell silent for a long time. I felt frustrated and was about to pull away and get off him. But instinctively, Michael tightened his grip around me, supporting my hips, and lifted me a bit. "Sarah, we're not right for each other. Even if we try to force this, we'll eventually break up again." His voice was soft. "I am not a good partner. You could find someone better." I snapped, "Who defines whether you're good enough? I never said you're bad, so why do you think you're not good enough?" "Michael, you always do this. You never tell me what's going on. You just let me guess and worry." I struggled and jumped down from his back, walking in front of him. I reached out and cupped his face, forcing him to look at me. "If you had just told me from the start that you had mental issues, or if you kicked me out with a knife, I wouldn't have left." The truth was, he never kicked me out. The house was his, the furniture was his, the meals were his, even the laundry was his. And in the end, he was the one who walked out of that home. This big fool. "But Sarah, I really want you to leave. Stay away from me. When I see you now, I feel so frustrated. I'm begging you, don't come near me anymore. Having you around is making me really unhappy. I just want to go back to the days when I was by myself." I stared at him, eyes wide, trying desperately not to cry. "Say that again. Leave. Just get out. Do you know how annoying you are?" That was the first time Michael yelled at me. In the past, even when we had huge arguments, he'd just try to suppress himself. Lock himself in a room and avoid me. "Fine, if you want me to leave, I'll leave. Do you think I care about you?" I slammed the door and walked out. Normally, when he locked himself in a room, I would leave, go vent to my friends, or just go out drinking. I was terrified that if I stayed, I would turn into some crazy woman who just screamed at him all the time. That version of me would be unbearable, not just for Michael, but for myself too. But this time, I didn't leave. I stood outside the door for about 10 minutes, looking down at my bare feet, pouting in frustration. Forget it, Michael is sick after all. I'd consulted with several doctors online, and they explained that people with avoidant attachment disorder behave like this. The more they like someone, the more they want to distance themselves. Michael is sick right now, so I won't hold it against him. I took the keys from my pocket and opened the door again. As soon as I stepped inside, I almost tripped over something. Michael was crouched by the door, hugging his knees, his head buried between them. He was so still, like he had shattered into pieces without a sound. "Hey!" I nudged him with my foot. He didn't respond. I closed the door and squatted in front of him, peering around him. But he had covered himself up completely, not letting me see. Frustrated, I finally grabbed his head and lifted it up. What I saw was Michael's red, swollen eyes staring at me. A tear slid down his cheek. "Don't tell me," I said in disbelief, "that every time we fought before, you locked yourself in your room and secretly cried?" I was genuinely shocked. I had never seen him cry. "I didn't cry, so why should he? Go away." His voice cracked as he slapped my hand away, burying his face back into his knees. I started to recall all the things he had done for me before, the way he'd always taken care of me. I fetched him a towel to wipe his face. His emotions gradually calmed down. I poured him a glass of water. He took a sip, and the first thing he said was still, "Just go." God! If I weren't so stubborn and dedicated to him, I swear I would have tossed a grenade at him right then. I realized that people really do need courage. Before, when I was with Michael, because I was unsure of how he felt inside, I would act strong on the surface, but deep down, I always felt I was just bluffing. But now, I'm different. Now I ignore all the hurtful things he says, and treat them as if they're just air. He can say whatever he wants. But I'll do things my way. If he really hurts me, I'll just climb on top of him and bite him a few times. Then he'll fall silent and look all pitiful. I stayed at Michael's place for more than half a month, then I took the initiative to contact the landlord to cancel the lease. I packed up Michael and his things and brought him home with me. He didn't want to go. He said canceling the lease early meant he wouldn't get the deposit back. And he'd be at a loss. I couldn't care less if he lost money. The soundproofing in that apartment was terrible, and the couple next door was always making noise at night. I was seriously losing sleep. Plus, I had discovered Michael's weakness. He was afraid of me crying. I used to be so naive, holding everything inside and refusing to show any vulnerability in front of him. The time I cried the hardest was when I was scammed. Sitting outside the police station. That was the worst I'd cried since meeting him. Michael said he was just going to check on me that day, not planning to take me home. But when he saw me on the verge of passing out from crying, he panicked, afraid I might do something drastic, and immediately took me home. Now, I had experience. The next time he says he wants to leave or break up, I'll shed a couple of tears in front of him. He'll feel guilty and regretful, and quietly retreat to the corner without saying anything. For the next few days, he definitely wouldn't say another hurtful word. And then, when he's silent, I'll start digging up old issues. That girl you were playing games with recently, what's your relationship with her? Michael looked confused. Who? The one with the great figure. Her online name is Bonnie. I signed an ad deal, the one I told you about before, the one with the 460,000 yuan payment. The client wanted me to play a few rounds of games with her. Really? The contract is still in the suitcase, Michael sighed, you can go check for yourself. He was busy making pasta in the kitchen, wearing an apron. Seeing me standing by his side, just getting in the way, Michael seemed helpless. I'm not lying to you. And I honestly don't care about other people's bodies. I quickly teased him, what do you mean by that? Are you saying my body's bad? I don't know if it's just me, but since I've been sticking by him, making sure he takes his medicine and going with him to follow-up checkups, his mental state has definitely improved. The most obvious change is that when I ask him things like this, he's more open with me. But it doesn't really matter. I've already prepared myself to stay tangled with him for the rest of my life. The smell of pasta wafted from the kitchen, and I crouched by the door, opening the package. All of these clothes were things I had bought for Michael. Since he moved back in, I'd made it my mission to dress him up again. Michael. I pulled out 2 white shirts and called to him from the kitchen. What's up? He rushed to the door of the kitchen, looking flustered. I waved the 2 shirts in my hands, a large and a small one, pick a day, and let's remarry. I remarried Michael. To celebrate our remarriage, I made him buy me a diamond ring. Michael grumbled, saying there was no need to remarry, complaining that we'd already bought wedding rings once, so buying another was a waste. I admired the ring on my finger for a while, satisfied. Then told him to go ahead and pay. Michael took the phone and followed the sales assistant, not forgetting to carry my small bag with him as he walked away. That bag was an Hermes, incredibly expensive, but I knew what he was really concerned about. It was the marriage certificate inside the bag. He was afraid I'd lose it. Michael and I still argue over the smallest things. He still gets sick sometimes, and when he does, he doesn't want to talk to me, wants to shut himself away. He still asks if we can get a divorce, says he wants to be alone. But not once have I let go of his hand. He asked me once if I ever regretted marrying him. No. The only thing I regret since meeting you is one thing. What's that? Divorcing you. Michael and I had our ups and downs, the kind of love that wasn't always smooth, but always real. In the end, we learned to accept each other's flaws, the kind that once drove us apart but now kept us together. Years passed. We went through moments of bliss and moments of tension, but we never let go. The thing about us was that despite all the arguments, the misunderstandings, the hurt, we never gave up on each other. We rebuilt our life, step by step. Michael learned to talk to me about his struggles, his fears, his insecurities. I, too, learned to be patient with him, understanding that his emotional walls weren't about me, they were about him and his past, his struggles with himself. We didn't live some fairy tale, but we had something better, a love that was messy, imperfect, but ours. And every time we fought, every time we healed, I knew we were stronger. I knew we had something real. Because no matter what, no matter how hard it got, we always chose each other in the end. One quiet evening, after a particularly long day, I found Michael sitting by the window, watching the sunset. He looked at me with that soft, familiar smile, and without saying anything, I knew. We had made it. We were here, together, and that was enough. Let's never leave each other again, he said quietly, his hand reaching out to mine. And for once, I didn't need to say anything. Because in that moment, I knew that no matter where life took us, we would face it together. Forever.
Michael, 28 years old, raised in a broken home. A high achiever, a software engineer by profession, and a game streamer on the side. Before meeting Sarah, his greatest passion was saving money. But after meeting her, one of his greatest pleasures became saving money just so he could spend it on Sarah. Another favorite pastime of his is sneaking out of bed late at night, gently taking Sarah's hand, and gazing at her sleeping face. The happiest moment of his life was marrying Sarah. The saddest was divorcing her. When he's struggling, his instinct is to retreat, wanting nothing more than to be left alone in his own world, shutting everyone out. Yet, paradoxically, he also craves Sarah's presence, hoping that, despite his pushing her away, she'll break through his walls and wrap him in her arms. His emotions are complicated, twisted, selfish, and hard to express. But in the end, he found Sarah. She's the one who can stand by him, even when he pushes her away with hurtful words, scolding him but still holding him tight. Baby, let's be together again in the next life, okay? At that moment, Sarah had just finished her work and was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open. She didn't hear Michael clearly and simply answered on instinct. It wasn't until after a while that she realized what he had said, but by then, Michael was happily in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Sarah didn't dwell on it. After all, no matter what Michael said, as long as it didn't touch on any fundamental issues, her answer would always be the same, okay.